Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. On the edition of the program, our focus will be on the exploits of Mohamed Salah in the Premiership in England. He is now the third best in terms of goal scoring in the entire history of Liverpool FC. He is an African, an Egyptian for that matter. So we should celebrate with Mohamed Salah this weekend. Beyond that, we'll take a look at tennis, where a British tennis star has sealed an Indian Wells third-round spot. And coming in from the world of football, Nigerian under-17 side beat their South African counterpart in a World Cup qualifier. Details of these and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Stay with us.
The board, management and staff of Morrison Media Group presents the 2025 anniversary lecture of Atlantic Television Network and Wish 99.5 FM. Theme: Imperative of Private Media in Sustainable Development.
Keynote speaker, Professor Tony Iradia, erudite scholar in broadcast guru. Chairman, Professor Umar Pert, President, Society of Broadcasters, Nigeria, and Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Kashiri, Gombe State. Panelists: Chief Honorable Arthur C. Kalabo, Information and Communication Expert. Dr. Haka Tuwait, Lecturer, Public Relations, Media and Communication. Dr. Bekwale Lawrence DK, Lecturer, Marketing Communication and Public Relations. Opaka Dakuba, Chairman, South-South, Nigerian Union of Journalists. Susan Sarakara Nwikana, Chairperson, Nawach, River State. Chief Host, Dr. Chinyere Igwe, Esquire, FSN, FINC, FNINN, MNIN, ARPA, MIPPA. Chairman, Morrison Group. Date: 10th of March 2025. Venue: Dimeji Banquet Hall, Gate Place Hotel, Kilometer 5 East West Road by Obinkwere Flyover, Rumosi, Port Harcourt. Time is 11 a.m.
Call Kehinde Paul Obofadi on 0802 301 5728. That is 0802 301 5728, or info@atlanticnetwork.tv or info@wishfm995ph.com. You can also call Lorenza Ogu on 0818 344 6746. That is 0818 344 6746, or lead content at atlanticnetwork.tv. This is signed by management. The board, management and staff of Morrison Media Group presents the 2025 anniversary lecture of Atlantic Television Network.
Welcome back. It's Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. This weekend, I have with me Kingsley Manuel. Nice to have you, Kingsley.
Thank you very much for having me. Very happy to be here.
Well, talking about this weekend, it is a special weekend where an African Egyptian, Mohamed Salah, has made history in the Premiership in England, and we'll take a look at that specifically, where he has emerged as the third highest goal scorer in the entire history of Liverpool FC in England. Of course, you know, they have a very, very rich and long history in the Premiership in England. But we'll get to that in a short while. First, we have to bring you some local stories. There is a General of the National Sports Commission, Kingsley. Honorable Lakpade Bukola has congratulated the President of the Nigerian Rugby Football Federation, Dr. Ademola Ari, for his election as the first Vice President of the Union of the West African Rugby Federations. It doesn't come easy. Nigeria making inroads into continental sports body. Now it is West African Rugby Federation. You know, I've seen in Nigeria as Vice President.
Yes, it doesn't really come easy, and I was commend Ademola Ari. I think in the last 3 years, he's been working tirelessly to make sure that, you know, rugby get back to its best, you know, down here in Nigeria. Of course, you know, you and I can agree to the fact that, you know, rugby has been on a decline, you know, for some time now in the country. But since he took over the Helm of Affairs as the president of the federation, the man has really, of course, you know, done a lot to make sure he revived, you know, rugby. And this, you know, recognition actually came due to his hard work so far, you know, in Nigeria and also in the continent as well. He's actually well recognized, and I think those who actually have given him this position have seen, you know, his progress so far and what he has been able to do to see how he can elevate rugby down here in Nigeria, not just in Nigeria, and all continent. That's why, of course, he's been given this particular position. I just pray that, you know, with this recognition, you know, rugby down here in Nigeria will get actually get more momentum.
Rugby in Nigeria going to the continent, and we're having in Nigeria as Vice President of the sub-regional body, West African Rugby Association, and this is really, really cheering for Nigeria. And what does it mean? Talking about Nigeria holding a position in the sub-regional and, of course, continental body. Do you think that this will see Nigeria, and apart from our voice being heard at these bodies, maybe attracting some kind of international competition, both in rugby and other sports, to Nigeria? Yes, you have a vice president now, so we could be seeing, are we hoping to see rugby tournaments in Nigeria any moment soon?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it will attract, you know, the competitions we actually see down here in Africa and down to Nigeria, and it will also give, you know, the Nigerian rugby players that opportunity to also compete with other players in the continent and also globally as well. If you take a look at it in Nigeria, the rugby league has not been so consistent, and somehow the rugby players have not been that active in terms of playing. And if you look at it, some of them are even, you know, much, you know, rusty. So if some of these competitions start coming in, or maybe these players, of course, start engaging themselves in some of this continental competition, it will definitely, of course, help them in terms of performance. Not just helping the players alone, but also helping rugby down here in Nigeria. You definitely see that the players, of course, will be able to compete with other players in Africa and also globally. Because if you want to take a look at it, since rugby in Nigeria has not been that, you know, very much active, it's somehow difficult, you know, for them to also compete with other African countries when it has to do with, you know, some competitions like this. But when these players start playing in some of this competition, it gives them that, you know, strength, and that, you know, giving them that, you know, high motivation to be able to go into any tournament and play with high boldness. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and see what, you know, Ademola Ari, of course, will be able to do with this position he has gotten.
Congratulations to Ademola Ari, and of course to Nigeria for emerging as the first vice president of the Rugby Federation on the continent of Africa, the sub-region of West Africa, to be specific. And just one more story before we get to our main discourse for this weekend. We told you how Mohamed Salah, an African, has made history in the Premiership in England. He has just emerged as the third highest goal scorer in the history of Liverpool FC. We'll look at how it has happened, and of course what it portends for African football. But just before we do that, let's give you one more story coming from the world of tennis this weekend. British number 2 Cameron Norrie has seen an upset coming from Jerry Lagda to reach the 10th round of the Indian Wells. It doesn't come too easy. finding British athletes or tennis players, go far in the Indian Wells. But Cameron seems to be making progress right now at the Indian Wells.
Yes, of course. He seems to be making progress, and I must really commend him this time around. For me, I think this is a tournament he has dominated so well. The last time he won this particular tournament was in 2021, and after then, I think he has gone he has gone to the quarterfinal stage about 4 times now. So this is a ground, this is a terrain he really understands, and that's why, of course, he's able to put up this level of performance. So for me, I think it's a good one for Kamil Nori. If you take a look at it, the man, of course, has been struggling. But coming down to this particular Indian Wells, I think he has been able to stabilize himself. Getting down to the 3rd round, is something huge, for him. So I hope, of course, he continues with this impressive momentum. Like I mentioned, he's won the Indian Wells before. That was in 2021. He has gotten to the quarterfinals 4 times. So I think with this, level of experience in the Indian Wells, he'll be able to go far this time around.
Alexander Zverev has been knocked out of the Indian Wells this weekend. We saw him win in his very first set against Talon of the Netherlands, but that wasn't good enough because he lost out in the second and the 3rd set. World number 3, 43, talking about the Dutch player, came back to win Alexander Zverev. What a weekend of shock for Alexander Zverev at the Indian Wells.
A very huge shock, of course, you say indeed. World number 43, Osinat world number 2. Is actually very disappointing one, as it stands. And I'm very disappointed with Zverev. A lot of persons actually thought that.
He's German, and you should expect that we'll see him go very far in the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I'm not really happy. I'm not really happy with his performance after the Australian Open. A lot of persons thought, after the ban of Yannick Sinner, that he's going to step up his game and try to see how he can close the gap, when it has to do with, the ranking. But the man has fallen short. Since the Australian Open, he has played 4 tournaments, has not been able to get to the quarterfinals of any of those tournaments. It's very disappointing. Doesn't look like a player that is very much optimistic, maybe in taking up that world number 1 spot, or maybe giving the likes of Yannick Sinner and the rest of other players a very huge challenge. Alex Zverev has just been a player who is not really much optimistic in getting something high, or probably in getting above the bar. He's just there. Maybe today he eventually wins, tomorrow he drops in terms of performance. I thought after getting to the finals of the Australian Open, he's going to build on that momentum, but in the last 4 tournaments, the man has not been at his best. And taking a look at the fact that world number 43 is hosting me now at this point, is very disappointing. And I think Zverev, of course, should do something about his pattern of play or his game, or else he might drop down the pecking order.
Well, Lorenzo Musetti is still in at the 3rd round of the Indian Wells tournament. We still have Holger Rune there. There is the Stefano Tsitsipas in there as well. What do you make of it? Daniel Medvedev, can he make a name for himself? The Russian doesn't seem to be getting it at the Grand Slam level, but this is ATP 1000 tournament, and it should be good enough to at least add some more points to his ranking.
It won't really come easy because the big boys are also there, talking about the likes of Carlos Alcaraz.
Daniel Medvedev is no doubt a big player in tennis. At the stage, he was world number 2.
Yeah, definitely, he's a big player. But talking about the Indian Wells this time around, will it be easy for him? I would say no.